The day Aarav Malik's life shifted forever began with a phone vibrating on a scratched wooden table, sunlight pouring through the kitchen window like it was trying to warm a man who had almost forgotten how to feel warm. He was tying his son's shoelaces with tired fingers, coffee gone cold beside him, when he saw his best friend's name flash on the screen. Aarav had no idea that by simply showing up for someone else's moment, he was about to stumble into his own second chance at happiness, the kind he thought had already passed him by. Before the story pulls you deeper, take a second. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet moments that change lives forever, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Touch. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that are still healing. Aarav was 37, a single father to a 7-year-old boy named Kabir, and exhaustion had become his default emotion. Daytime was his battlefield. He worked mornings at a small architectural drafting firm, rushed through afternoons juggling school pickups and homework, and spent evenings fixing broken toys and pretending he wasn't lonely. His wife had passed away 4 years earlier after a short illness, leaving behind silence that no amount of routine could fill. Aarav learned to survive, but surviving was not the same as living. His friend Rohan had been there through it all. They had grown up together, shared cheap lunches during college, and promised to never let life turn them into strangers. Recently, Rohan had finally decided to try dating again after a long and messy divorce. The problem was that Rohan's confidence had been shattered, and the idea of a first date made him panic like a teenager. That was why he asked Aarav for a strange favor. He wanted Aarav to show up at the cafe during the daytime date, sit at another table and just be there, like an anchor in case his nerves betrayed him. Aarav almost said no. His life was already stretched thin, and the idea of sitting awkwardly in a cafe felt unnecessary. But loyalty had always been easier for him than self-care. So after dropping Kabir at school and finishing a long morning at work, Aarav found himself walking into a sunlit cafe with large windows, potted plants, and the hum of daytime conversations floating in the air. He chose a table near the window, ordered a simple tea, and checked his watch. Rohan arrived minutes later, stiff and anxious, followed by the woman he was meeting. Aarav tried not to stare, but something about her presence pulled his attention like gravity. Her name, he would later learn, was Meera Joshi. She had calm eyes that carried both strength and gentleness, and she moved through the space with a quiet confidence that felt rare. She smiled easily, not loudly, and there was a softness in her expression that made Aarav feel strangely seen, even from across the room. As the date unfolded in the background, Aarav pretended to scroll on his phone, but his thoughts wandered. He noticed how Meera listened intently to Rohan, leaning forward slightly, sunlight catching in her hair. He noticed how she laughed, not out of politeness but genuine warmth, and he noticed something else too. There was sadness there, subtle but familiar, the kind that comes from having loved deeply and lost. A sudden mishap broke the quiet rhythm of the cafe. Kabir's school called. Aarav's heart jumped. His son had fallen during recess and scraped his knee badly enough to be sent home. Aarav stood up quickly, bumping his chair, drawing attention. Meera looked over instinctively, concern flashing across her face. Their eyes met for a brief second, and in that moment, Aarav felt something he hadn't felt in years, recognition, not of faces, but of shared understanding. Aarav left the cafe in a rush, guilt washing over him for abandoning his post as Rohan's silent support. The rest of the day blurred into bandages, cartoons, and reheated leftovers. Yet Meera's face lingered in his mind like a half-remembered song. Days passed. Aarav assumed that was the end of it. People like him did not get fairy tale coincidences, but life, it seemed, had other plans. The following week, during a daytime school volunteer event, Aarav spotted Meera again. She was standing near the playground, helping a little girl adjust her backpack. It turned out Meera was a part-time art instructor who volunteered at local schools during the day. Fate had placed them in the same orbit once more. Their conversations grew slowly, organically, woven between school activities and coffee breaks. Aarav learned that Mira had lost her husband in a car accident 3 years earlier. She had no children of her own, but she carried a quiet ache that mirrored Aarav's own. There was no dramatic spark, no rushed romance. Instead, there was comfort, there was understanding, there was the rare relief of not having to explain the heaviness that grief leaves behind. Still, Aarav struggled. Letting someone in felt like betrayal to the life he had built around survival. He worried about Kabir. He worried about reopening wounds. He worried that happiness, once lost, might be too fragile to touch again. Mira, sensing his hesitation, never pushed. She stayed present, steady, meeting him where he was. One afternoon, Aarav invited Mira to join him and Kabir at a small daytime community fair, watching Mira kneel down to Kabir's level, listening to his endless stories about dinosaurs and space rockets. Something inside Aarav softened. Kabir laughed more that day than he had in months. Aarav noticed how Mira looked at his son not as an obligation, but as a gift. The real challenge came when Aarav's fear finally surfaced. He pulled away emotionally, convincing himself that it was safer to be alone than to risk another loss. Mira felt the distance but responded with patience rather than pain. She reminded him gently, through actions rather than words, that love was not a replacement for what was lost, but an expansion of what could still be. Time passed. Day by day, sunlight-filled mornings turned into shared routines, coffee after school drop-offs, walks through the park. Quiet afternoons spent drawing with Kabir at the kitchen table. Aarav realized that his life was no longer defined solely by responsibility and grief. It was beginning to include hope. The turning point came on an ordinary day. Aarav stood in the kitchen watching Mira help Kabir with a school project, her laughter filling the space that once echoed with silence. He felt something crack open inside him, not pain, but release. He understood then that love was not something he had lost forever. It was something that had simply been waiting for him to be ready again. Near the end of this story, if these moments are touching your heart, if you feel the quiet power of second chances and gentle love, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in hope, and let us know in the comments how this story made you feel. Your engagement truly means more than you know. Aarav chose to stop running. He chose to live, not recklessly, not dramatically, but fully. He allowed himself to imagine a future that included laughter, shared mornings, and a woman who understood both his scars and his strength. Mira did not change his life by grand gestures. She changed it by showing up, by staying, by seeing him not as a broken man, but as a devoted father worthy of love. And Aarav realized that the most powerful transformations often begin when we least expect them, on a normal day, in a quiet cafe, while doing something kind for someone else. Just before this story ends, we have one special request. Please comment the word hope if you believe that even after loss, life can surprise us with something beautiful. As the sun set on another ordinary day, Aarav tucked Kabir into bed, his heart lighter than it had been in years. Somewhere between responsibility and resilience, he had found room for joy again, and that perhaps was the greatest kindness of all.